welcomes and connections to country are really important to us. It's for our recognition and for you to know that the Larrakia people are here. 2,000 strong, belonging to 9 major family groups, and we all understand that no one family speaks for all Larrakia people. Each speaks on their own authority. Let's pay our respects and gratitude that we are still here, and remember all the family and friends and people whom we have lost, and that to sincerely acknowledge and pay our respects to our ancestors and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and all First Nations peoples, and to all the non-Indigenous peoples and elders that have passed. Because it's our ancestors whose bones and ashes have laid the foundation of the land we stand upon today. It is a truly remarkable and necessary tribute by Sarah George for capturing the history of Big Bill Neidjie, his Dreamtime Stories, life and feelings, and now as a historical book, GAMU. So look after country, and in return, Gwawa Daraniki, our land, and Darabunungalinga, Old Man Rock, will look after you and protect you in return. So now on behalf of my elders, past, present and emerging, Damagiri, Gwalwa, Daraniki, welcome to our land, stay safe, travel well, look after yourself, and buy this beautiful book for its historical value and heritage.
Old Bill, I didn't meet him, but I heard a lot of stories about him through his son Jonathan, and this is to his legacy.
I love it up there. Sometimes when I don't get a luck for visitors, I always call it to Granddad. Ma, come on, you're my best friend. Give me all the luck for all the visitors so I can give them your story to take back home. Then I look, 1 or 2 coming along, and then big crowd. And I love it.
When I was looking at Sarah's book when she came out, the life, some of the photos, and Sarah, I don't know if you could show us one of the photos of that old man is just so striking, and really brought home to me just how much he's missed. I've got a poster or a painting on my wall which was given to me by the Jabiluka Association from Jonathan, and then when I got elected in 2001, and it was a picture of that old man and talking about country and how important it was for all of us to be custodian and to make sure that we look after country. But his biggest fear was about young people and how important it was for young people to be learning and making sure that culture remains strong, and that learning of young people, not just in classrooms and in schools, but out on country, and them knowing the importance of who they were and their identity. And that's really important.
I met Big Bill one morning when I came back to East Alligator, staying with a childhood friend, Anna Pickworth, her older sister. We were like best friends when we were really young, and she was working as a seasonal ranger there. And I think I only stayed with her a couple of nights, but the next morning we went out with Big Bill and probably Stephanie, I think, was there, Priscilla. We went out to near the airstrip there at Cannon Hill to get ngamange, the long-necked turtle. And then when we got back to Anna's, I saw she had that book, Kakadu Man, and so I read it. And then the next morning I was packed up ready to head off to the Kimberley because it was my plan to go around Australia, and the wet season was coming and I'd better get moving. But Big Bill they both lived at East Alligator Ranger Station at the time. He was very close. So I thought, shall I go and say goodbye to him? No, don't humbug him, I thought. The other side of me saying, go and be polite and go and say goodbye. So he sat down and he asked me what I did. And I'd been a Steiner teacher. And we used a lot of art and story in our teaching. And because I'd been up there and I love the country, we were talking, I told him I'd been to Mount Borrowdale and Black Point, and because of course he knew all those places, but I didn't understand that at the time. But Mount Borrowdale was his mother's country. And Black Point, he spent his childhood going up through that country. He worked up there in his middle age. And I said, I'd love to teach here, but I don't know the stories. It didn't make sense from a Steiner teacher's perspective to teach in a place where you don't understand. And he said, you get a tape recorder and I'll tell you those stories. So that's how it began. I didn't understand the significance of it until, listening to all his tapes, and how important that was for him, for the children, to have their stories, and I can see why.
Obviously I didn't grow up out at Arnhem Land, grew up here in Larrakia country, and it wasn't until I think about 1991, 92, I went back to Cannon Hill. I'd gone there when I was younger, but I actually went there, and it was just after I'd played hockey for Australia. And identity was a big thing, because here I was, this Aboriginal girl, known to the world, but I sort of didn't have culture connection because my mum was stolen generation. And so identity was a big thing. So then, when my father took me back to Cannon Hill, Old Man Bill was the first person waiting. And he said to me, I've been waiting for you to come, in that big, deep voice. And when I went back there, I was actually injured. And Old Man said to me, I'll fix you up. So he took me to Injuandrum. So when I went there, he smoked me and he healed me, and we stayed there. And he told me a lot of things. And you don't realise that the stories you get, you're never told in the one time. It's an accumulation. You got to keep going back and back and back to understand everything, because our lives, our connectedness is 50,000 years old. You don't learn that in one weekend sitting out in country. So Old Man Bill, he gave me my identity as a Binning woman, and he gave me so much faith in everything that I did. I was doing it for a purpose. And what I learned from him was you are nothing without culture. And I knew what I stood for because of him.
You don't get it all in a weekend. You don't get it all in 6 months. You don't get it all in 2 years. That's why this book has taken since 1995 to produce, because every time I come back, every time I listen to those tapes, every time I read those transcripts, every time I proofread it, which I can't tell you how many times, I pick up something more every time. The knowledge is deeper and deeper in you. So I'm sure you'll all buy this book. But when you do, don't just read it once. Read it again and again. And those stories, they are so important for the future generations.